Shalom Aleichem, my name is Yechi3x, and we're going to show you what Besuras Hageulah is. Besuras Hageulah is a sefer, a book, where many very vital, important information that you are supposed to know is inside. This one small book can change, and has changed, many people's lives for some reason. The person who made this book is a chosid. Let's put it this way. This book is actually small parts of what the Lubavitcher Rebbe speaks about moshiach, the small parts, especially in the later years. Nun and Aleph and Beis are the last 3 years that we were zeiche to hear the Rebbe say sichos and the Rebbe fabring and everything. And those last sichos were very, very, very powerful, especially regarding Mashiach. So Rabbi Blooming, a chassid of the Rebbe, took all these sichos, the last ones that were very powerful, and spoke about Mashiach. And why we say very powerful is because the Rebbe always spoke about Mashiach, but there are things that the Rebbe didn't say all the way. Comes after Memches, especially after Tafshin Memches, the Rebbe started to speak extremely blunt about things that he would, so to speak, be hesitant earlier. The Rebbe also declared a new period from Tafshin Memches, which is when the Rebbe's wife passed away, the previous Rebbe's daughter. And after this time, the Rebbe spoke much more powerful, much more openly, much more straightforward about Mashiach. So many things that the Chassidim always knew and the Chassidim always figured, the Rebbe finally said them out straight. And so to learn these sichos from Memches and Nun Beis, especially till Nun Beis, especially Nun Aleph Nun Beis, Nun and Aleph Nun Beis, which are the last years, is extremely important to know exactly what the Rebbe wants and what the Rebbe left us, so to speak, with, and where we come into the picture of doing what we can to actually bring Mashiach. So this, now every time the Rebbe spoke a very long range of things. The Rebbe spoke about that week's parsha, about that week's Torah portion, but then the Rebbe would also at the end bring all that down to why this and this should be the way Mashiach, why should Mashiach come today, and why this and this proves that Mashiach, so on and so forth. So the firois, the conclusion of a lot of sichos was something to do with Mashiach. So this book in essence takes only the parts about Mashiach, the strongest paragraphs, the particularly speaking about Mashiach, out of the entire sicha. A sicha could be 10 pages long, eventually sometimes. So instead of 10 pages, you have that specific paragraph where the Rebbe actually says the firois, the outcome of the entire sicha, which is related to Mashiach. So the sicha, so at the end of the day, this is quotes from sichas, quotes from the Rebbe's talks. Each one has a date on the bottom, and it's also in Yiddish and in Hebrew. Well, there's also one in English, of course, the Besuras Hageulah in English, and in other languages, I'm sure. Out of all the paragraphs in the Besuras Hageulah, there are a few that are extremely powerful. Take for example Eis Memches, which speaks about the last sicha the Rebbe spoke to the shluchim. This is an extremely powerful sicha, and a shliach that will read it will be extremely overwhelmed to see, if it's his first time, the power and the extent of how far the Rebbe goes on how important Mashiach is in the shlichus. And the first time I learned Eis Memches, which is the Sicha of Chayesar and Nun Beis, I saw that it's not just for no reason that people make a shturm that the Rebbe shturmed about Mashiach. The Rebbe says that Mashiach is the most important thing in Yiddishkeit. The Rebbe says very strong words that even like we say, if you try to, look at it as simple as possible, it's still extremely powerful. And there's no ways of going around it. The Rebbe is extremely straightforward about the fact that Mashiach is the most important thing in Yiddishkeit, and the Rebbe goes on and explains all the details about what that means exactly, and how we've already finished everything we did in Golus, and it's time for Mashiach, and so on. Another powerful sikha would be the sikha right after, which is Memtes, which also the Rebbe speaks about how every breath of a person's life has to be connected to Mashiach. Now, there's no two ways around it. Again, this is straightforward. Everyone agrees. If you learn the sikha, that's exactly what the Rebbe meant. Now, the opinions are on other aspects of the sikha, not that specific point. But everyone agrees and everyone understands, and this is everything in Besuras Hageulah is muga, which means the Rebbe went through this and the Rebbe saw it before it went out to print. So that means that the Rebbe checked everything. Now, the Besuras Hageulah, another powerful thing is, you see a lot of times the Rebbe speaks about how the Arab nations fighting is one of the signs of the geula. Now, the Rebbe doesn't say this once and twice. The Rebbe says this many, many times. And always I was thinking, why so many times? And then you look in the world and you see that's exactly why. Because the Rebbe is predicting what's going on in the world. The Rebbe is saying things that are happening in the world. And since the Rebbe said this, which was about 20 years ago, there have been so many Arab kings and so many Arab rulers and so many Arab nations which are in battles between each other. And when the Rebbe says that this is one of the signs of the geula, now we can understand, why the Rebbe repeats it so many times. Because the Rebbe knew that this is something that's going to actually happen for a while. And the Rebbe wanted the Chassidim to know that this is not something negative, this is something positive. Why, how exactly, this is all Hashem's, God's cheshbon, calculation. But the fact that it's happening is a good thing, and it's a sign of the redemption. We know that right before Mashiach comes, the Arab countries are going to fight with each other. Another thing to note about Besuras Hageulah is that when they brought it into the Rebbe to look over, the Rebbe usually would leave a book on his desk for a few days max. There were only certain books, sefer that the Rebbe checked, that would stay on the Rebbe's desk for a long time. The Rebbe specifically wanted them there. But usually when they would bring a sefer for the Rebbe to check over, it wouldn't stay on the desk for too long. But Besuras Hageulah, when they brought it to the Rebbe to check, every time a week would go by, 2 weeks, and this Besuras Hageulah was still on the desk, other stuff would pile up. The Rebbe would always put the Besuras Hageulah on top of everything else. So, and the book never left till the end. The Rebbe never took the book off of his desk in his room. That shows that the Rebbe was miyaker, the Rebbe was held precious to sefer. Now, to know that Besuras Hageulah is, what does it mean in English? The call of redemption, or the message of redemption, or the announcement, for your information, the redemption is coming, the proclamation of redemption. To understand what this is, it's a very simple concept, but at the end of the day, it's very, very, very interesting. The Rebbe was telling us what is going to happen, what we should be worried about, what we shouldn't be worried about, now that Mashiach is about to arrive. So, like for example, many people want to know, is America going to blow up? Not as far as the Rebbe is concerned. I mean, as far as we see in the Besuras Hageulah, the Rebbe doesn't mention anything weird happening to America, for example. The Arab countries, does the Rebbe speak about it? 20 years ago, the Rebbe said that the Arab countries are going to fight, and this is one of the signs of the geula, and they haven't stopped fighting since. And there's a few tips that are good to know that help us while we learn. One tip would be to know that a lot of times the Rebbe will say what's special about the day of the week, what's special about this week, what's special about that month, what's special about this year, and then the Rebbe will say why it's the best time that Mashiach should come, this second. So, a lot of times someone will say, why is the Rebbe speaking so much about how important this week is and how important this day is? The answer is the Rebbe wanted that Mashiach should come this moment, and he was, so to speak, giving Hashem reasons, more reasons to bring Mashiach right now. So that's why sometimes you have to know that, and it helps in the learning to know that that's how the Rebbe is trying to in that direction. Also, another thing would be that a lot of times it says V'yesh Leimar. The Rebbe says something, the Rebbe says an idea, and then he says V'yesh Leimar, and according to this, we could say so. V'yesh Leimar, when a chosid hears the Rebbe say V'yesh Leimar, it's not V'yesh Leimar, it's the Rebbe says, and that's how it is. It's not like maybe it's like, yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, I didn't think of that. No, it's the Rebbe saying this V'yesh Leimar, and this is how we're gonna say it. So it's much more. It's not just a nice little idea. This is the way it is.